In the 1980s, the quiet city of Westby, Wisconsin was the last place authorities expected to find a murder victim. An older woman with graying hair and blue eyes was killed and dumped on the side of the road, and 33 years later, the Vernon County Jane Doe remains nameless. Approximately 11:30 p.m. on May 4th, 1984, 4 miles outside of Westby, 3 teenagers drove along Old Line Road, not suspecting what the gravel would give way to. Along the side of the road, unconcealed, was a body. Frantic, the girl and 2 boys ventured to the closest farmstead and phoned the Vernon County Sheriff's Department. Patrol Deputy Jim Hansen answered that call and followed the teenagers to the body, coming up on the scene around 11:50 p.m. Immediately, Jim notices fresh tire tracks making a U-turn nearby, but his attention turns to the gruesome scene before him. The woman, at first glance, seems to have taken a beating to the head, and her hands are missing and nowhere to be found after a quick look around. Other officers from Vernon County and members of the Wisconsin Crime Lab Bureau arrive and analyze what they can of the crime scene, taking photographs and bagging the evidence. Back at the medical examiner's office, the autopsy reveals several factors about the unknown woman, except for an identity, so they called her the Vernon County Jane Doe. Doe fell somewhere between 50 and 63 years of age, was Caucasian, had blood type O, blue eyes and brown hair, graying at the roots. Her hair was permed as well. Standing at approximately 5 foot 5 inches, she weighed around 150 pounds and sported a nearly 5-inch vertical scar along her abdomen. When found, she'd been wearing several layers of clothing that either had their labels removed or were homemade. A distinction wasn't made. The buttons on her clothing were unique, and she was wearing a brown and blue plaid jacket with a pink and purple inner lining over a black, blue, and white paisley print dress, and a blue turtleneck sweater, nylon stockings, and tan loafers on her feet. While her body didn't tell investigators much about her life, it did give them an idea of her death, and it had been a violent one. Just a warning, the image I'm about to show on screen will be graphic, so viewer discretion is advised. The woman, found just 24 to 48 hours after her murder, suffered severe blunt force trauma to the left side of her head and face, particularly at the ear, leaving her nearly unrecognizable. She'd been bludgeoned so violently that her jaw, eye socket, and dentures were all broken. Part of her dentures were missing as well. It is unknown whether or not her hands were severed post-mortem, but the reasoning was likely to keep Jane Doe's identity a mystery. With no evidence to help them identify their victim, authorities turned to outside agencies and the public. They broadcast the case on local news channels, hoping someone will come forward with more information. In the meantime, they canvass neighborhoods and follow all possible leads to dead ends until they receive a call from a couple who witnessed something odd the same night the woman's body was discovered. Around 9:45 p.m., the couple witnessed a bright yellow 2-door compact car similar to a 1982 Datsun parked close to Cut Across Road by U.S. Highway 14 between the towns of Westby and Coon Valley. Near the car was a man who swiftly made his way from the passenger side to the driver's side before speeding off, disturbing the gravel. Authorities hone in on the area where the couple saw the suspicious man and uncover more disturbing clues. In addition to tire tracks, detectives find a men's quartz Seiko watch with one broken end sporting the model number 86200019 and serial number 5498. Nearby, police also find traces of blood. It is unknown who it belongs to, and part of a broken denture, a match to Jane Doe's dentures. This portion of the denture was missing 2 teeth, but also contained possible serial numbers 420 or 4-20 and 289. However, serial numbers aren't specific to certain patients, so this small detail did nothing to help authorities pinpoint their victim's name. Police form a possible narrative for the Vernon County Jane Doe. They think the man in the yellow car, now considered a suspect, murdered Jane Doe in a different location, then put her body in the car and attempted to dump her along the side of US Highway 14. However, when he noticed the couple watching him, he decided to find a different spot for his victim and drove approximately 3 miles further to Old Line Road, leaving Doe where she was found. Unfortunately, as the years marched on, the tips slowly dried up. Attempts to identify the murdered woman through dental records, public bulletins, and outside help yielded no results. The unidentified woman was buried in the Viroqua Cemetery, the headstone simply inscribed Jane Doe. Investigators have, however, managed to eliminate 3 popular theories concerning Jane Doe's identity. Audrey Backberg out of Wisconsin was in a troubled, allegedly abusive marriage from the young age of 15 and disappeared when she was 20 years old in 1962. Her husband was questioned in the case and passed a polygraph exam, and no other arrests have been made. She remains missing, but is not the Vernon County Jane Doe. Then there was Joan Risch, a missing woman from Massachusetts we've formerly covered in a separate episode of Dark Matters. She vanished one day, seemingly without a trace, and hasn't been seen or heard from since 1961. She is still missing, but is not the Vernon County Jane Doe. And finally, Elizabeth Rogers out of North Carolina vanished in March of 1983 after gathering with friends and family at a bar. She remains missing and has been ruled out as the Vernon County Jane Doe. Theories for Jane Doe's case are scarce. No family or friend has ever come forward, and authorities are at a loss. Some speculate her killer might have been her only surviving relative or acquaintance, perhaps a caretaker or loved one. Others try to deduce the reasons behind her brutal end: robbery, insurance money, revenge, or just cold, calculating violence. But unfortunately, because so few details on Jane Doe's case are available, and because there are no new leads, we may never know the truth of this woman's death, but technological advances in DNA testing could move the case forward. In 2013, the Vernon County Jane Doe saw light again on television stations across the state when a 3-day news documentary titled "Catching Her Killer: Justice for Jane Doe" aired. Following the show, tips were called in, but none brought any answers. However, it seems local law enforcement isn't giving up on the unidentified woman. Working in tandem with the Wisconsin Department of Justice, the Division of Criminal Investigation, and Crime Lab Bureau, the Vernon County Sheriff's Department continues to search for Jane Doe's identity. On August 12, 2015, the body was exhumed for further DNA analysis, with hopes new technology can help reunite the woman with her true name and eventually lead to justice for her murder. Law enforcement has even utilized social media to bring more attention to the case, creating an entire Facebook page for Jane Doe with all of her known information in her profile. The continued investigation of the Vernon County Jane Doe is led by Sheriff John Spears, who said, "We hope that finding the true identity of Jane Doe by using the forensic sciences of today that were not developed in 1984 may lead to her killer. She was a living, breathing person, likely someone's daughter, neighbor, or customer, with her own identity and life story, whose life was left at a roadside following a brutal murder." This is the most current facial reconstruction of Jane Doe, done by forensic artist Katiana Falsetti at the University of Arizona. If you have any information on the Vernon County Jane Doe's identity, her murder, or her killer, please contact the Vernon County Sheriff's Department at 608-637-2123. That's 608-637-2123. Additional information and sources on her case can be found in the description below. Special thanks to the Patreon family. The names you see on screen are just some of the people who financially contribute to this case. Whether they are passionate about cases like the Vernon County Jane Doe's or the other dark content on this channel, their support cannot be overstated. If you are interested in supporting the channel, information is in the description, but even if you only continue to support by watching, thank you. Thank you for giving the Vernon County Jane Doe a moment of your time, and no matter what you choose to believe or what you speculate, I ask you only for respect in the comments below. And though they called her Jane Doe, she had a true name and deserves to have it back, and deserves justice for her unjustified death. Thank you for watching the video. Exposure to these cases is highly important, and to those of you who support this channel by watching, contributing, or buying merchandise, thank you. If you want to see other unsolved cases or dark content, be sure to subscribe to this channel. Stay safe, friends, and have a good night.